Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
how changes. It's going to die off.
What he said?
Hi, Sharon. How are you?
Sorry, look at you, you look nice and tan. Look at her all tan.
Well, we could do a couple things. This is going to take probably 15, 20 minutes. Or to actually get started. When we get down here, if we have to delay, we can, and go to some other items. And come back to the information items. You want to do that? Yeah.
I don't know.
You're doing it, right?
That's right. Excuse me. We'd like to get the meeting started, please. Thank you, Sheridan, for being present. At this point, I'd like to call the meeting to order. The reason why I'm doing so because tonight we're making a transition in board leadership. So this is one of the few times I'm actually in control of the entire district at the same time. Wow, governance and leadership. That's wonderful. It's a good feeling.
Move along.
Moving on. Can you please join me, stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please? We have a flag right in front of the room here.
Flag in the front now.
So used to that.
Thank you. In terms of announcements, the way you came in is probably the best way to leave. We have exits here as well as exits on the side of the room as well. At this point, I would like to ask for an adoption of the agenda. Mr. Casey, thank you very much for making that motion. And Mr. Presley making the second. Do we have any questions? All in favor? Okay, we have an agenda. Congratulations. At this point, I would like to ask Mrs. Wetmore to come forward. Mrs. Wetmore is the district clerk to do a few things. Swearing in of our newly elected board members, Mrs. Stevenson, Mr. DeLallo, and Mr. Gilbert, as well as the election of officers, which I will handle after the swearing in ceremony.
Can we do this all at one time, or do we have to do it individually?
Individually. We do individually.
I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office
of
member of Board of Education
member of the Board of Education
in the Shenendehowa Central School District at Clifton Park,
in the Shenendehowa Central School District in Clifton Park,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations, Mr. DeLallo. Welcome back.
Thank you. I didn't know I left.
I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office
of member of the Board of Education
of member of the Board of Education
in the Shenendehowa Central School District at Clifton Park,
in the Shenendehowa Central School District at Clifton Park,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of member of Board of Education
in the
Shenendehowa Central School District at Clifton Park,
Shenendehowa School District of Clifton Park,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. So congratulations, Mr. DeLallo, Mr. Gilbert, and Mrs. Stevenson. Officially, Mrs. Stevenson, welcome on board.
Thank you very
It's
much.
great to have you here. At this point, I'm almost done with my duties here, and so I'll take it very slowly at this point. Mr. McDermott is in the process of correcting technology, so please don't have him from a distraction. An important event for the Board of Education is the election of board officers. So at this point, I would like to call for a nomination for the president of the Board of Education.
So I'd like to nominate my friend, Presley, to be president. Bob is an Annapolis grad, father of 2 children, and go to our district. He's been on this board for some time, shows great interest in data and our kids, and where we're going direction-wise, how we can involve people. Bob, I do want to caution you, though. Bob, in his history, was an officer in the Marine Corps, and I can tell you, Bob, that for most of the time, this is a lot less unruly group. There are times when you have to call that up, and we know that you have that, so I'd be glad to nominate Bob. Happy to do that as president of this Board of Education.
Thank you, before I even ask for a second. Before we call the question, just so that the board and the public understand how the nomination process works, if we have a first, which Mr. Casey just did, we have a second by Mrs. Baber, and with the first and second, the board will be asked to cast a vote. If the vote is majority, we have a new president. If the vote is not a majority, we'll start the process again. So at this point, with the first and the second for Mr. Presley as Board of Education President, I will call the question. All in favor? Unanimous vote. Congratulations, Mr. President. Welcome aboard.
Appreciate it.
And so at this point, Mrs. Wetmore, come back and swear Mr. Presley in before we make the transitions of seats.
Yes, that's right.
Get up.
I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge
that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of President of Board of Education
of President of Board of Education
in the Shenendehowa Central School District at Clifton Park,
in the Shenendehowa Central School District in Clifton Park,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my abilities.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So we'll make a transition. So temporarily, Mr. Casey will move one spot, but that's a temporary move because at this point, I would like to turn the gavel officially over to Mr. Presley, who at this point will make and call for the nomination for the Board Vice President, following the same sequence.
Thank you very much, Dr. Robinson. I'd like to call for nomination for Vice President of the School Board.
I
Mrs.
bring
Rajek.
forth the nomination of Todd Gilbert as Vice President of the Board. Todd has 2 children in the district and has been serving on the board for 3 years. Sorry, Todd's not as glamorous as what Bill said about Bob, but didn't realize I had to elaborate more. So there you go. That's my nomination.
It's easy. That's good.
And do we have a second? Mrs. Stevenson. And similar to what we discussed for the president, I will now call the vote.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Vote for yourself.
You can vote. Don't vote for yourself.
See ya.
I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
that I will faithfully discharge
faithfully discharge
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of Vice President of Board of Education
of Vice President and Board of Education
in the Shenendehowa Central School District
in the Shenendehowa School District at Clifton Park,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So transition.
Seats. And then we'll move to the 4th item, which and we'll now move to the 4th item, which is our Code of Ethics.
Oops, you got to just to vote, do my oath as well.
Oh, oath of office, oath of the superintendent, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Excuse me.
I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge
that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the position
of
Superintendent of Schools
as Superintendent of Schools
in the Shenendehowa Central School District at Clifton Park,
in the Shenendehowa Central School District at Clifton Park,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my abilities. Thank you.
And the fourth part of this is to endorse our code of ethics. This is a document that we'll pass around. I don't think we need to do anything else.
Yep, each person just read and sign.
Okay.
At the bottom of that.
This will be public record as well, so thank you very much.
Yeah,
And
you
now-
probably should just do that first, Bob, before we go
Okay.
to.
And as everybody's doing that, we're going to transition to Board of Education comments. So let's start off with Mrs. Stevenson. Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say thank you once again. I'm so very excited to be here and be a part of this wonderful, great group. Thank you for the support you have lent me in the last couple of weeks since the election. A lot to take in. This is a wonderful, huge school district, and there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and we do truly a great job. So thank you very much for that. And the other item that I wanted to mention is Karen's Kids. We talked about the Bountiful Backpack Program in the last couple of meetings that we've had. And Karen's Kids, led by founder Brad Fields, is doing the 5th annual charity golf event on July 25th. And all the benefits from that is going to jumpstart our program in the fall. This is a program that is going to be able to send food and needed resources back to children in our school district that we identified that can use them. And we are starting K through 8 at this point. So the proceeds for that event will go toward that program. So we're asking if there's golfers that are out there, please, we've posted this on the website. We are in need of golfers. I will be sending a lot of this information out and hopefully getting more involvement. So thank you very much.
Okay. Mrs.
Yep.
Go ahead, Mrs.
Thank you. First of all, congratulations again, Deanna. We're thrilled that you're joining us on the board, as well as congratulations again to Todd and Gary for being reelected. Todd is vice president and Bob is president. Sorry, long-winded, but there we go. I just wanted to take a moment. We had the opportunity to attend the graduation for the class of 2016. I had the privilege to attend for the first time as a board member as well as a parent, and we have a remarkable group of students that graduated, as we typically do. Just very impressed with a lot of the remarks by the valedictorian, the class vice president, each so unique in the remarks they made, and I think really left a lasting impression on not only the graduates but as well as the families. So that was really exciting to be a part of that, and we had the perfect day, of course, at SPAC for that. We ordered that up just perfectly. Also looking forward to the summer graduation. We do have some students that need a little extra time to complete their high school journey, so I remember participating last year in that, and that is such a special occasion as well, so I look forward to that when that comes up. So that's it for me.
And Mr. Casey.
Yeah, thank you. 13 years ago, I retired from the controller's office, and I didn't work in the audit section, but I would see audits. It was one of the required reading that would circulate them before they went out. And Shenendehowa just got an audit in the last couple days from the controller's office, and it was the shortest audit I've ever seen. I was trying to find the executive summary or the findings, and it was hard to do. But I want to read you one line out of that audit, because it's rare. It's extremely rare that you hear this in an audit. We commend district officials for establishing and implementing effective procedures over the district's claim processing function. There were no other findings, and we were congratulated for what we have. And I talked to the lead auditor, and I knew that they were extremely satisfied here. Remember when this started 5 or 6 years ago, we were close, we were big, and we were willing to have them come in and really run their first set of audits through us, and that was a good audit too. But this is one that it was even hard to find the goodness in it, but there is goodness, and there was nothing negative at all. It just shows that we have a wonderful team that is helping us with our fiduciary responsibility, and that's a serious responsibility we have. So I just want to commend Kathy and the folks and the staff across the board, because I know enough about this, having read these audits over the years, that it's not just the people who sign on the end, but it's having a culture of understanding accountability along the way. And I see that here, and I think that's really important. It's one of those quiet things that school districts don't often measure themselves on, but it's important to taxpayers, and it's important to the board to know that we have that quality assurance behind it. So thank you and congratulations. And just one other thing, I'm glad at our last meeting, we passed a resolution extending Sheridan's term with us for another 6 months to the end of December. She has been a wonderful asset piloting this program to get a student voice here, and just so happy that Sheridan is the person who has set the bar here, and it's going to be a high bar for other people to reach. So thanks, Sheridan.
Thank you.
That's it.
Okay. Mrs. Blakeman?
Sure. I want to say welcome again to Mrs. Stevenson and congratulations to Todd and Gary on your re-election and your swearing in. But I also want to say thank you to you, Mr. Casey, for your leadership over the last couple of years. And I certainly wish you, Mr. Presley and Mr. Gilbert, all the best in embarking in leadership now. Couple of wrap-up things that end of year celebrations, and I always like to highlight those if you don't mind. Well, I'll do it anyway. First Team 20 had their end of year celebration, and the student swears you to challenge, actually. One of the faculty members at RPI spoke to them. He's one of the mentors, and you know RPI doesn't just sponsor our team, they sponsor a lot of teams. So he told the students that he's very impressed with our robotics team. The Shen team has never received the Chairman's Award, and they want the Chairman's Award. And the challenge to the students was if they adopt the mantra, sort of, we can do more, not Mrs. Vera can do more, that the students can do more, that he feels they will get closer to achieving the Chairman's Award. So I'm going to be interested to see how they take that to heart next year. So more to come on that. There were a number of Flag Day observances at Shen. I participated in the one at Orangen, and just reflecting on that and recent events, just the importance of events like that and how they contribute to the empowerment of a civil society and develop a sense of patriotism. And that, to me, is becoming more and more evident as something that's important for us to do as a school district, each building in their own unique way, but that we need to keep doing that often. Some of our seniors, a number of our seniors participated in a beautiful mass at St. Edward's to celebrate their graduation and offer them a blessing as they went off to graduation. Just really well organized, and I think they probably really did feel a certain transition leaving that, and I wanted to congratulate them. Scano's moving up ceremony is one of my favorites, probably not the least because they always start with an entrance of bagpipes, so you can't really argue from my perspective with the bagpipe escort, but always glad to be part of that. Mrs. Rosado already talked about graduation, so I won't elaborate much except to say that the musical performances this year were just outstanding, mostly a cappella, changed it up this year, and they did great. And to have one of our students write a score as a gift to his classmates, there's nothing better. There's nothing better. So definitely wanted to call that out. And personally, I checked off a bucket list item last week. I drove a bus. Everybody who got on got safely off, so I just want to say, and I don't think the mechanics were too mad, but it did give me an even greater appreciation for the work of our transportation department. So I appreciated the opportunity. I'm done.
Mr. DeLallo?
Yes. First of all, I'd like to thank Bill and Bob for their service as officers. Bill did a magnificent job, just as I expected him to. And Bob has already shown leadership and taking responsibility for different tasks and projects within the previous administration, shall we say. And I look forward to his presidency along with Todd's service as vice president. I have a confession to make relative to that, the piece that was written by the student. I missed the fact that he had actually written that. And I was sitting there and I was saying to myself, well, that's one I haven't heard before, but that's really good. But it goes to show you that not just my ignorance, which goes, goes without saying, but the fact that he produced such an outstanding piece of music that I had no idea that this was done by a student at high school level. That's really phenomenal. I did want to make one comment. Recently, there have been a number of articles in the newspaper about the anniversary of our commissioner. She's now served 1 year. I think it was either the 6th or 7th of July. And rightfully, she got high marks for moving into a rather difficult situation. And she was able to calm things down and start moving forward and listened a lot and started to address a number of issues simultaneously, but as they came up, and her actions seemed to reflect the feedback that she was getting. My only concern remains that she came in under a different administration, headed by a governor who is making a lot different noises than he is now, and that I hope that she realizes that she has to change from what her original mission statement might have been to reflect that. And as long as she does, I think she's going to continue to be supported and accepted. The biggest hurdle, of course, for everybody in state ed, the regents, and on down, has been the credibility gap that was created as a consequence, the trust gap that was created as a consequence of what happened over the last 3 or 4 years prior to her assuming the commissioner's job. That's it.
Mr. Gilbert.
I second all the comments that everybody said about Bill and about Bob. It was I thought we had a great year as a board last year, so looking forward to what we'll do together this year as well. Thank you, Knowles, for being vice president. I will say the view was better over there. But no, again, I want to say thank you. I'm looking forward to the year. Looking forward to all we're going to do together. Thank you to my wife and daughter for showing up, and I will say I'm ready for school to start back again. So, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, everyone, for your support. Congratulations to our new board members. This is a board that really provides a lot of mentorship, support, guidance, humor, and really focuses on the students here and how we can improve the quality of education year over year. It's a continuous mindset. We're also focused on making sure that we spend the tax dollars wisely for our constituents, and also making sure you have safe schools. And generally, that whole combination has been working extremely well for us. There's always going to be situations where people, might point out something negative, and we don't hide from that. I think we need to listen to the comments that come from the community. At the same time, I think most people are happy they live in this district and can send their schools here, and if they're not sending their students here, if they're not sending their students here because their students have graduated, I think they're very happy with the value of their property that comes about from it. So I think we're definitely on the right path. I want to say a special thank you to Mr. Casey. The work you did the last 2 years to improve our communications with the community is very much in that spirit, making sure that we're thinking of different ways based on the feedback, based on what people are telling us. And I think the proof in the pudding comes about when we consistently are getting very positive votes, very positive comments as you go through an election. Just the higher percentage of people that are backing us up, even though the numbers are down, I think as someone pointed out, that's often because we as a factor of whether it's a controversial election or not. And I think this last election was very smooth sailing, and we like to continue doing that because we are all about the quality of education. Oliver, I want to thank you for your help and guidance. You're the guy who holds it all together for us. And continually, everybody here points out just the level of fidelity, energy, enthusiasm you have around the district is something we really appreciate. And we look forward to every year you simply continue to grow into your role, and we're excited about what happens every year as you do that. So thank you very much. At this point, I would like to turn over to public comments. Now, this is an opportunity. I assume I still read it, right?
Sure,
For the
for the
record?
first time.
For the
might as
first
well.
time? Okay. This is an opportunity for the public to address the Board of Education. Are there any residents in attendance? If so, please complete the comment form. The board will not address specific comments, but ask for your name and address in the event follow-up is necessary. The board reminds residents that the public comment portion of our meeting is only one item on a long agenda. We would therefore ask each speaker be as succinct as possible, and their remarks be limited to 2 or 3 minutes. We would also expect the residents speak in a respectful and courteous manner so as to model proper civility and decorum for our students. Residents may also contact the board by email at boe@gnet.org. All questions come into the Office of the Public Information Officer and are shared with the board and/or superintendent as appropriate. Policy questions, concerns are typically addressed by the board president. Operational questions, concerns are typically addressed by the superintendent and our designee. So that's our standard speech. We do believe the importance, and we did make some changes to it, and we definitely want to continue to ensure that we include the community if and whenever possible. And now I turn it over to Dr. Robinson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Presley. Again, congratulations. Looking forward to your leadership of the board. And Mr. Gilbert, same to you. Congratulations. Certainly for the public's purposes, the board president and vice president plays a tremendous role in terms of government and governance. I look forward to our, I'm going to say, every other week meetings to discuss various agenda-related type things. Thank you very much, Mr. DeLallo. Thank you. I want to say particularly to Mr. DeLallo again, I say welcome back. Mr. DeLallo was the outgoing president when I came on board 11 years ago almost, and he's coming back for another 3-year term. And so, Gary, I think we'll keep parallel paths. As long as you stay, I'll stay. How's that? Before I make a comment on Mr. Stevenson, I would like to thank very much Mr. Casey. As Mr. DeLallo was going out as president, Mr. Casey has come in as president, and some people probably don't realize it, but to a large part, the reason why I'm here as Superintendent Shen was because of the persistence of Mr. Casey. You know, he followed me between Bill and Ray. I wasn't sure who I was talking to. Was it the father and the son? I thought Bill and Ray were 2 different individuals for a long period of time. So, Mr. Casey, thank you very much for your persistence, and thank you much for your leadership the past 2 years as well. Mr. Stevenson, thank you for your patience, and I say that because for years you've been involved in the PTA. Your commitment to the school district is very true, and I think it's important. I think the reason why this board has been very functional over the years is because we have people who come on board with a true commitment to try to make the system better. And recognizing that we all have various perspectives and not every idea is going to be implemented. I often say to people, not every good idea needs to be implemented. Some just look at it and say it's a good idea. So thank you very much for your, hopefully, I know it would be a wonderful service to the board. So welcome aboard as well. And just a couple of comments before I transition. Yes, Sheridan, I meant to say you were on my mind when you first walked in. I was like, you know, this kid is great. How many kids in the summertime will say, you know what, I don't have to be there, but I'm going to come because I made a commitment. And that speaks to your integrity as a person. I'm not even going to say as a young person, as a person, period. And that goes a long way when people look at people with integrity. That's, that's someone you can depend on. So a tremendous trait to have. So again, welcome on board, or continue being on board. So appreciate you being here. Just a couple of comments before I transition to some information items. So just one thing I just want to point out, and just recently I shared with the board, and Mrs. DeFisciani may have put on the website already. If not, she'd be gearing up to do so. Each year, the Business Review put out information on school districts as part of their big school report card information. And while we don't necessarily follow stats, it's an interesting analysis because it does provide a pretty comprehensive comparison of schools within the region. When I say pretty comprehensive, they use a lot of data points to draw their conclusion. And each year they expanded. This year they actually went into looking at college matriculation and things like that data. And as we get more data on what kids are actually doing in college, they're looking to include that in the process as well. So it's a pretty comprehensive view of things. So something I just want to point out, because when I look at it, I look at all the data sets that they provide. And the 2 probably most pronounced data sets, the academic data sets, and then the financial data sets. And this year, Shen, academically, based upon all the different data points, ranked number 5, which is wonderful, regionally out of almost 92 or 93 school districts. Tremendous achievement for the school district. That achievement plus, so I would say kudos to the leadership of Dr. Wood and all our academic leaders within the school system. Tremendous recognition for that effort. Plus the fiscal aspect of it. Out of the 87, I think, school districts that were reported for per pupil cost, Shen was the lowest, the top three, number three lowest in that region. So when you put those two things together, 5 and the 3, we are, in fact, the most effective school district in the region. And that says a lot because, sometimes, quite frankly, I often say, if somebody give me, $20 million more, will I give you $20 million worth of return? Probably not. But you'll get, because you get to a certain point where you start having diminishing returns. But you'll get some growth. And so I say that in the sense that money is important, but money isn't the most important thing. It's what you do with the resources, which then brings me back to the point of saying thank you very much to the board, particularly as we start another year. For one, your keen governance is so important. Allowing us as administrators, as faculty and staff, to do the things that we're charged to do as, if you want to say that, the hired experts within the school district. But your governance is important, and because your governance allow those things to take place, and I think that's where the first step starts, permission to do. So I want to say thank you very much, board, for that permission to do a lot of great things on behalf of our students. And with that comes quality staff. A lot of time, and we see it this summer, a lot of time is taken to hire quality staff. Very extensive processes to ensure that when we bring someone in front of the board, particularly instructional staff, there are people we can say, yeah, you know what, I put my kid in that person's class. And so I personalize it to that point, because if there's someone who I think, not sure if I want my child in that class, I'm not sure if anyone else should have their kid in that class neither. So painstaking effort. So I really want to say that, because it's important for people to recognize that it's not running after stats, it's about focus on quality and doing what we can to improve every time. So, and it starts here with this body. So I really want to say thank you as we start a new school year for giving us permission to do the things that we need to do. So I'll transition into the information items, and I would imagine that the first item is not necessarily one. It's my name is listed here. It's the district survey and mission statement. I know there was an ad hoc group. I don't know if Mr. President, if you want to comment on that a little bit or not.
Yes. One of the things we worked on our goals last year was a better understanding of our mission statement, and this was something that you don't know what you don't know, but you need to efficiently figure out with what's there. And we asked one of our subcommittees with Mrs. Rajat, Mr. Gilbert, Mr. Delalo to figure it out. And we are also a district that will resource to need and not over-resource, because we have a lot of things we always want to continue to work. I was very impressed with what came out of this. If you saw this in spring, I filled one out. Quite a few people filled it out. I don't have the exact numbers, but again, a phenomenal response from the community, 610 participants. And the outcome was 85% felt the mission statement is effective. A very simple survey, because that's what our committee felt was needed. And 15% felt that it should be modernized. Now, very strong message. However, we as a group also need to think beyond just that 85%. There are people that have expressed concerns. And I think that we, throughout this summer, will look at it closely, because if there is a group that feels like they're not being part of our community, not being well served, we need to figure it out, find out what's not happening. Maybe there's some things we can do either very quickly or through a more deliberate approach to address that group or group of needs. So we want to make sure that we thank the community and also explain where this will go forward in our retreat in August. I think we're going to use this very closely, look at it closely, and see what we can get out, continue to get from it. Does that help?
Yes, and you have to excuse me, I can't see the thing on top of it. So, speaking of retreat, if you're on Obama, if you want to just comment, again, more information items for
we have a scheduled retreat in the 23rd of August or 22nd of August, 23rd. And really our approach here is we have an agenda. There are things we want to bring forward, we want to discuss. I think we want to come out of this with a better understanding of what we can continue to refine and develop as goals. What I've learned from this district, there is no true process that is sort of like an engineering process or a staff planning process where it's either top down or bottom up. What I've learned is that this really comes down to some deliberate conversations among people who really care and really are interested in advancing the cause of the Shenendehowa Central School District. And coming out of this are things that we think will truly impact students. I think, Mrs. Blaber, you've always pointed that out. Whenever someone asserts something, one of the first questions you like to ask, and is very appropriate, is how does this impact student education? How does this improve the lives of our students? We also want to make sure that we are truly cognizant and deliberate in our approach. As you said, Mr. DeLallo, with the devil in the details, that's often what you point out to us, is that you can't make a very short-minded decision. You have to put a lot of thought into it. And we also want to make sure that we resource to need. We don't want to over-resource or under-resource. And so those are the types of things that come about from these conversations. So I look forward to progressing through this. I look forward also to preparing it and going through a lot of things that have come forward, both comments from board members as well as things like results from surveys. What are people thinking? What does the community expect more from us? Hopefully that answers any concerns, any comments or questions.
So, Mr. Presser, this is your night.
Yeah.
The board liaison assignments.
Okay. You have a document. I think we've looked at this. I do believe we have some comments back from...
I've been collecting some, and I sent the email out, so some individuals have shared with me already, not all. And just so people know the process, if you share your, you want to say desires, probably the wrong word, with me, then I'll collect that information, compile it, share it now, that we know who the board president it is, with Mr. Presley and Mr. Gilbert, for them to look at, and probably at the retreat or maybe the August 9th meeting, it'll correspond back to the entire board in terms of what the liaison assignments will look like. So please send me an email if you haven't done so already in terms of some of your assignments that you think you may want to continue, not continue otherwise.
So this is a draft. This, from my perspective, this is where you really learn the craft of what goes on. What is being discussed at that level of detail? What does it take to bring an idea that sounds good in a conversation, but into something that we can take action on? Can we fund it? Can we resource it? Can we do it the right way? And as we said, we're going to fine-tune this and get it voted on in August.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So at the positive, we're using a laptop as an ad lib for the technology, so some of the things are probably more difficult to look at. One document that I do, this is a part of my planning process, so to speak, and again, it's particularly important, particularly our new board members, but certainly it's a good refresher for the entire board. In order to effectively do all the things that we do as a school district, we have to have processes. I'm a big process person. Put a process in place, then we don't have to worry about things. Things will happen if we design great processes, and they happen consistently over and over. And so one of the things I try to do every year is the presentation schedule to the board. And the presentation schedule is aligned with, we try to bring forth initiatives, programs, activities, you name it, that support the various goal areas. So it's a chance for the board to see, okay, yeah, we have this goal, but what's happening in that goal area? You get a chance to see some of the things happening within that particular goal area. So you'll see right on the document, curriculum instruction, budget resource. So you can see, oh, okay, that's one of those things that support that particular goal area. And it's also important to the public because, again, oftentimes people wondering, hey, what's happening within the school district? This is a great way to see what's happening within the school district. A third component of it is also a way to keep, from an administrative perspective, keep us on track in terms of timeliness of when things are done, because literally I sit in July and lay out the entire school year. Recognizing, yes, things will ebb and flow based upon occurrences, but it really kind of said, let's really start putting the entire school year out. And I shared it out with the board, and in fact, I heard a couple comments from a couple board members. Mrs. Baber, thank you. It was a carryover, because a lot of these things you also see are very cyclical. Every year, certain action items come up every year to the board, and so sometimes you hear people say, well, the board is just a rubber stamp. Well, there are certain aspects of the organization that happens every year. And quite frankly, if we're doing it very well, it should happen every year the same way. And so therefore, it shouldn't be a big to-do every time we're doing the same thing over and over. So I share that because as we continue to fine-tune the goals, we'll make adjustments to this. as initiatives occur, or quite frankly, if we have some major occurrences, be it change in regs, change in laws, change in something that we need to bring a presentation to the board, we do so. But also, more importantly, as a board member sitting here, it takes the guesswork out of the equation. You don't have to say, I wonder if we're going to hear about one-to-one again. We heard about it in May. If you look at this, you'll see that we're going to be talking about one-to-one again. So, one-to-one technology. So I share this only, again, information to say that this is another one of those processes that we have. And while this may look pretty simplified, this is the school district and what we do and what drive the things that we do, because all these things have tentacles well beyond the paper that you see here. So it's a tremendous process, and we'll continue to fine-tune as we move forward. We'll continue to look for some student opportunities. And it was under Mrs. Blaber's leadership as president some years back. It was a big thing that you wanted to do, particularly students outside of the academic, athletic realm, because we do that. And so we've brought in musical groups. We brought in captain students last year, wide variety of different students from elementary to high school to, again, give the board an opportunity to see the goals in action. So I think it's an important piece to do so. And related to goals, I just want to spend a couple minutes. I'm sorry.
Can I say one thing?
Sure.
So when I started 3 years ago, I remember some of the first presentations I was looking at. They were about 972 pages, and you had to have a training document on how to read everything. And it was amazing. So you talk about fine-tuning. You don't necessarily have to have 40 pages to get the message across and understand what's going on. And we've done a lot of great things in these 3 years. You know, the document that has the, I call it the pie chart. It's got things like that are very visual and help everybody understand where we're going as a district. I mean, it's a great thing, and you have to have a level of detail and a level of information. I understand that, but at the same time, there's ways, and the district has done a great way of communicating that everybody can understand and not get too lost in the details.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Any questions or comments related to this? I'm looking kind of your direction, Mr. Stevenson, being a new member of the board.
I looked at,
This, again,
math to follow.
and as other board members know, if you have a thought about, hey, what about this thing, share that thought. And quite frankly, as you also know, I'm kind of quick to respond, especially if you send an email after midnight. You probably get it back right away.
Yeah.
So please, the quick response is not being curt. It's just a quick response. Just a couple of things. I want to spend a few minutes here, and it's not intended to spend a long time. This is actually kind of a dark slide, so it's hard to see from a public piece of it. But just to talk about our goals process. When I say our, I'm now thinking more administratively, because we'll be engaged in some board goals process as a part of the retreat. So I'm not sure to focus so much on that. But one of the things that Mr. Gilbert alluded to the constant, while many things happen in a very cyclical manner, we're always trying to refine it, always trying to fine-tune it every time. And so while the 5 goal areas that's been a part of the fabric of the school district for the past, I would say, 5 or 6 years haven't necessarily changed, the 5 goals, we have made modifications to objectives, and what administrators do to support those objectives have obviously changed because of needs and resources and things of that nature. But one of the things that we have done internally to really, again, fine-tune the process is created some guiding principles in terms of when we start looking at those key objectives or those key actions that will be taken in any given year. We talk about, the consistency with our values and beliefs as a system. And that's important because if we're not grounded in something as a system, we fall for everything. And we're constantly all over the place, and quite frankly, we can get nowhere fast. Or we end up doing a lot of superficial things and nothing very deeply. So we try to make sure that what we do as a system is grounded in beliefs. So those principles are important. And so this year we started talking about some guiding questions, again, to ensure the maximum engagement and instructional outcome. And big piece of it, the theme of engagement was a theme when Mr. Casey became president, transition between Mrs. Blaber and Mr. Casey. Was a big theme, was the engagement piece. How do we ensure that we're doing things that engage students and foster that passion that we want kids to have, that excitement. We want kids to show up in July for a board meeting. That's the kind of engagement we're talking about. And so two other dimensions that we added to our process this year to ensure, again, or should I say to tighten up our accountability even more so, is talking about who's responsible. Who's responsible to ensure that these actions are being carried out and satisfied and being done with fidelity? And also then who's involved? How do we ensure that we're coordinating things with the right people at the same time? The whole notion of synergy becomes a big part of it. So that's a big piece of it that we've been talking about. And one of the things that we did this summer, I wish I could see this better.
This is hard to read on paper, let alone.
And so one of the things I wanted to share with the board, before we even, this is a part of the, if you want to say, our guide to develop and I gave a sample of what it looks like, just as a sample example. So literally, the document is all this plus some. So just to give you an example, so we have a district one that I collect and capture a lot of information that I share out with the board. Mid-year and year-end and things of that nature. And then each administrator also have their individual and want to talk about what their individual action that's supporting that building level, that program level action. And let me clarify that each administrator is supervisor, so we go across instructional and non-instructional with this process. And so that's important. And so this started for us intensively back on the 27th at Siena. We do two what we call leadership academy retreats in the summer. The first one, it's always off-site. Off-site is going down to Siena. We started doing it a couple years ago. That's our real off-site, so to speak, out of district. And then we do the second one coming up on the 19th at the Elks Lodge here. And Elks have been wonderful, by the way, tremendously accommodating group of folks. We really appreciate their hospitality. And so I shared this, only put up this agenda because to give the sense to the board that by the time I come to have a conversation with the board in August, there's a lot of work has already transpired. And last year, we did a little transition to say, okay, we have all administrators piece of it. What was the board piece? And so we have that whole section for the board. And one of the things that I will be doing and send out to the board is kind of creating this same template, using the objectives last year from the board, maybe some fine-tuning based upon some of the things I know has already transpired, and send this back out to the board. So once we start getting to the August meeting, we can really start talking about this because, the board may say, hey, we want to do whatever, community forum. Well, who's involved in that? We need to start having that conversation. Is it just the board? Is it now Kelly? Is it me? Is it so having those kind of things so we can then, quite frankly, to coordinate how those things going to happen. What's the timeline? What's the time frame? So I'll be sending it out to the board to kind of facilitate the process. So we're all traveling in parallel paths, board administration alike, and there's no differentiation. We're all moving in parallel paths in the same direction. So that's one thing. But I just want to point that piece out in terms of we spent a lot of time, several hours talking about the goals process. And one of the big things that we're doing this year, too, and it's important for the board to know, and we'll have a further follow-up, one of the big themes for administrative this year is focus on this whole notion of implicit bias. And how do we as a system see our role in respecting diversity even more so than the things that we're doing already, and also see our role as education as a mechanism to preserve social justice. And so somebody listens to those terms and they sound like civil rights terms, but the reality of it is all those things apply to the tremendous diversity of students and staff that we have within our building. And so how do we look at our process to ensure that and for example, something that we're going to be engaged on the 19th with administrators, the homework and grading policy. And not only the technical aspect of the homework and grading policy, but what does that mean from a diversity and social justice perspective? What does that mean from a family who says, this is not our thing to do certain things, or this is our thing to do certain things, or all those kind of things, or the fairness and equity within grading policies and the biases that people bring. So the biases could be from extreme racial sensitivities or insensitivities to, quite frankly with you, I just don't like how someone sounds. And so therefore I act or react or don't act to certain things. And so how do we look at that, and how do we look at that lens? And so we spent a lot of time on the first day talking about the whole notion of implicit bias. And then on the 19th, we're going to have a session. We have a gentleman, Greg Owens, who 10 years ago did a great session for us on crucial conversations. How do we have those crucial conversations as staff and end of a constructive outcome? So I shared it with the board so you know that it's not just filling this out. I can fill this out myself and just give it to administrators and say, here, these are the things that you should do. And people will do it, some people better than others, but that's not the intent. Intent is how do we have a true sense of empowerment and embodiment of what we're trying to do, but within a context. In the context we really want to talk about, because when you look at the dynamics of what's happening in the world right now, a lot of interesting dynamics. I'm not even talking about just the dynamics here in this country. You know, not to segue too much, but I just read this morning, you know, the British Prime Minister is by default. This person was the only person left standing to become the Prime Minister of a country whose economic decision is going to impact the entire world. And leadership is by default. So when you think about those kind of dynamics that's happening, how do we as a system ensure that when we are doing things, it's not by default versus by, quite frankly, your assertive effort? So I share that as a backdrop with the board, because those are the real deep conversations that we're having administratively. We've had and continue to have, and we have continued throughout the year as we develop our goals. So it's not just a technical, it's truly the cultural impact of the goals themselves. So any thoughts, questions that the board have? I just want to kind of give you that kind of, you want to say, framework. Any thoughts, questions?
I actually think, but I'll also defer to other board members. I watch the goals process, and every year it gets stronger and stronger. One thing I'd like to point out, you actually meet with your direct reports almost 2 hours once a year to go over those crucial conversations. And I think that's something that it needs to be mentioned here, is that it's not just things on paper, but it's actually one-on-one discussions with the people that work for you, and you have expectations of them. And I think that adds a lot to this. That really fleshes this out. Instead of being a list, it's actually a lot of in-depth, deliberate thought. What I also see on this is, particularly the organization chart, is a level of detail.
Great segue.
Oh, wait, no, that's the next one. I'll hold off on that. But the other thing I want to say is just the level of transparency on these documents. If you're in any other organization out there, whether it be business, whether it be public sector, you don't have a lot of this transparency. You don't have somebody putting this together and saying on a yearly basis, let's talk about this during the summer, and then let's launch it sometime in August. It's very transparent as to where it's going. And so, you know, what we owe to you is to go through it in detail and ask the questions, ask for the clarification, because the work's been done on your side. We need to understand, you know, what it means, where it's going, you know, and some of it's just with more of a, you know, hey, this word didn't make sense, but maybe this would, but that also helps to make it better for next time. So that's just some comments from me.
Yeah. Bob, I'd like to just say, refer back to Oliver's comments about the business review. We don't get to that position without having detailed plans, having people down the line knowing what's going on and participating and buying into that behind the scenes stuff. If you don't do that, the upfront, the front page of the business review doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. It makes a difference, and to have the discipline to do that every year, I was going to say, probably, maybe for some staff it's over and over. We're doing it again. But there's something that comes out the end. And what we're hoping comes out the end is excellence and focus. And the results speak for themselves. So keep on doing it.
Appreciate that. And related to capacity, just a couple of things, and certainly welcome comments from the board tonight and beyond tonight as well. I just want to clarify the document that we initially sent out. So if you printed this before today, you have an older version. So it just, but not a lot of changes, but some slight changes. and I want to highlight the change. It's kind of hard to see over here in the key. This little squiggly looking line was modified to read now direct communication, evaluation, and supervision. And the reason why with that, when you put an organizational chart together and trying to avoid stuff all over the place, you have to make some assumptions or some inferences is probably even a better word within the structure itself. And so I made what I thought was a clear assumption, but everyone else didn't realize it was a clear assumption. So this squiggly line here, what I call a squiggly looking line, is a line that speaks to, and I'm going to use, well, a couple of things I want to point out before I even get to that. If a very pronounced difference in this particular chart, and this is what I call a typical accountability chart. Who's reporting to whom, who's supervising whom, who's evaluating whom. So it's a standard kind of chain of command. One of the things that we did with this chart is actually start from the top. Who are we actually trying to provide services to? Who our key stakeholders are, our students and parents, and with the Board of Education and myself. And so that was a significant difference. And so that somebody may see that and say, oh, that's so cute, you just turned it upside down. But it's beyond cute. It's because it forced me doing this to really then think about, do we have the right flow of structure to get the outcome, as Mr. Casey pointed out, consistently get that outcome? And the answer was largely yes, we do have the right flow of structure. And so how do we kind of delineate that again to make sure it's clear to everyone else? And so I sent it out to our administrators, and in fact, just today I got some feedback from SAW, and so this is one of the modifications, and we'll look at this again several times over the summer before we come back to the board to ask the board to officially approve it, so to speak. And so your feedback, continued feedback is important. So I just wanted to share that, and I'll send you a direct. This link is now on the board agenda link, so if you want to see that copy of it. But this is an interesting dynamic. You want to make sure that when people making a distinction between supervision and evaluation. And I don't want to be crude to say, okay, I can tell you what to do, but I'm also going to evaluate what you do. Some people are evaluating people that they're not telling what to do. And so I use that distinction, so that definition to make the distinction, so to speak. And so a lot of our roles overlap and intersect, and so that's why sometimes a straight line organizational chart isn't as effective. And so this really try to capture this, and these dotted lines along the edges that you see here and across is talking about the importance of everyone always collaborating with each other, and that's the key. And so if you see this piece of it, the piece that's probably most pronounced is that all the time we have a responsibility to each other. And so that's how we drive the synergy, if you will, the organizational synergy. So this one talks to the accountability piece of it. And so this, in the past years, is all we had. We kind of just put that out there, and everything else about the organization was kind of assumed and are known by people in the role. But as over the years, as we get different people come on board, it's kind of like, how do we ensure that, quite frankly, we remain a very fine-tuned machine and not have hiccups because people making assumptions, and those assumptions prove to be wrong, and then all of a sudden we're undoing or redoing things that we shouldn't have to undo. So we shift gears and added some additional dimension and started looking at the district from a functional category. And I kind of understand this is how I wrap my hand around the district, just like that. Just like that, I can kind of tweak what pieces we need to move or maneuver or leverage in order to yield a certain outcome and impact. So we kind of put the district in functional categories. This is not a reporting category. It has nothing to do who's reporting to whom. This broadly looking at it from the finance operation, the schools, the instructional, and the management services. And the color coding is important because you'll see later on the color coding aligned with the color coding of another aspect of it. So there's always a method to the madness. So if you see something and you think, I wonder if there's a method to that, more than likely there is. And so this again gives you, the board, the public, a sense of, oh, okay, I have some good sense of what this organization is about and the capacity to address the various needs of the organization from a functional piece of it, because it gives, again, the administrative capacity to address those things. The last two slides is something that we will continue. We will continue to I'm going to say struggle, it's probably too strong a word, but we continue to challenge ourselves. That talks about delineation of some roles and responsibility. It's not meant to be all inclusive. a term that Dr. Wood introduced to our conversation was this whole notion of lead agency. Who's the first point of contact on certain salient issues? So we always have that, and when you start looking at this, the details are hard to follow. You see a lot of people have some of the same things listed underneath them. And it's because, in reality, there's a lot of redundancies, and the redundancies are important. So take, for instance, counselors. Mrs. Carmen deal with counselors K-8. However, middle school administrators deal with counselors 6-8, elementary. So there's redundancy. So what we try to do is avoid a situation of, not my job. Well, it's kind of everyone's job. And we all deal with each other in different ways, but connecting all the dots become important because we have the outcomes. So I share that with the board. And so we really try to delineate this piece of it to talk about who are the lead agents on certain things, especially particularly certain district level things, because even internally, people will ask questions like, hey, who's the records access person? Who's, I get a subpoena from an attorney. Who am I supposed to bring that to? And so I give you just some concrete examples. So this helps support those kind of things, that lead agency piece of it. And again, the color coding from here align with the functional categories that you saw on the other side as well. And we, this year, is something that we added, this is the new dimension to this piece of it, was looking at the building level piece aspect of it, and looking over here from professional development, adding John and Gail to the professional development piece. Why those individuals don't have administrative titles, they serve in an administrative function. And that's a clarification, because sometimes people get called into, this person not administrative. Well, they have an administrative function. And professional development is an administrative function that we have to carry out. So between Mr. Sugarman, Mr. Burlington, and Mr. Professor, we have those pieces. Then we kind of break down the academics piece of it, and we break down the building piece of it. And you'll see there's some subtle words you have to look at very careful. The may not look like anything, but have significant impact when it comes to, and I'm just going to point out one as you look at as a board at some other point. When you talk about parent communications, for example, parent communications listed both under academic administration and building level leadership. So under academic administration, parent communications, courses, placement, curriculum. So in other words, some parents are going to call Mrs. Kitchen to say, hey, somebody suspended my kids from school. Yes, I appreciate that. I would relay that to the appropriate person. Not her forte, not that she's right, not my job. We will never have that not my job thing. It's all of our jobs, period. But when you look at parent communication on the other side, we're talking about teacher-related, behavior-related. So kind of make that distinction that we're all engaged in parent communication, but come at it from different angles, if you will, or different perspectives. And so I share this with the board, and this is something that if you remember the last few months we mentioned we're going to hold organizational review. This is the outgrowth of that organizational review. I have tons of pages and comments from folks to say what are the things that people that frustrate people. How can we clarify processes? And so we hope that this will help clarify accountability, help clarify our organizational capacity by functional, and then talk about some lead agency pieces. And all these documents, after approval by the board, will be also available to the public so people can understand how the structure actually falls into place. Any thoughts, questions, comments from the board right now? Mrs. Blaber.
Go back to the one with the squiggly line. This one, there aren't very many characters in that top box, but it's a huge sign to who we are all responsive to. And it didn't appear before. I don't think we've had this particular document in the past. And I think it's really huge to look at what the bookend of that document is from the board's perspective to the parents and the students. And everything that's in between is important for you to be able to run the operation. But those areas are where sort of the buck stops. And I just think it's really powerful to put that not only on the document, but at the head of the document.
Thank you. Thank you. So please, if you have any thoughts, send me an email, because we're always trying to fine tune and make sure, because what makes sense to me may not make sense to you. and what makes sense to you probably shouldn't make sense. So it's always that thing too, where so like, yeah, this makes sense. Oh, that wasn't intent. So so we always go through that because this is a process. This is an evolving process all the time. So I share that with the board. So please offer any feedback that you can, because we'll be probably the August 9th meeting. We'll come back to the board with a final version for the board to adopt, and we'll formally put on the website as well. So those are the main presentation piece. Before we transition to policies, I don't know if there are any further questions you have for me. All right, sir, it's on you.
Okay, we'll turn over to Mrs. Carmen to talk about first reading of policies.
Good evening. So tonight we have policies for review from the June Policy Review Committee meeting. These are for first reading, and you have, I don't know if you're putting them up or not.
So I had questions, there were revisions based on those, so I guess.
I believe yours were on the second reading memo.
I have first and second.
Yeah,
Mostly
Yep.
second.
Yep.
Thank you, Mrs. Thomas.
All right.
You're coming back, right?
Before we transition, Mrs. Stevens, were you able to access, do you have Google Access now?
I don't have that yet, Dr.
Okay,
Robinson.
so we'll make sure that you get that sooner than later, because everything is shared via that way, and we don't want you to be
Thank you, I
disadvantaged.
appreciate that.
Yes.
We're working on it.
Absolutely, no problem, thank you.
Want me to take over?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's move on to the consent items. The first one is the treasurer report. Motion to bring this one to the floor. Mr. Casey, Mr. Gilbert, second. Any comments, questions?
Yeah,
Points of discussion?
Mr. Casey mentioned it earlier. I've been on the audit committee now for 3 years, and it's one of the easier meetings, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just everything flows so smoothly, and you hate to say you want something to happen, so you get a little excitement, but it's
Let's hope not.
Not in this area.
everything is in order. And I was going to mention, you mentioned earlier about the audit that we received, and it's just. It's amazing, and I think any business in the country would be happy to have results that we have when it comes to those types of things. So it's a good thing.
Okay. Any other comments? All in favor? Unanimous? All right, let's move on to minutes and,
But that's a part of the,
what's that?
that wasn't, okay.
You only called the treasurer's report, so we probably should do.
Okay, we'll split them into two separate ones. So let's motion to bring forward the minutes of June 7th. All in favor? One. And okay, Mrs. Blaber, Mrs. Rajat, okay. Anyone want to discuss them?
I'm going to abstain.
You'll abstain from which one?
June 7th.
Okay.
I was absent.
And should Mrs. Stevenson abstain since she was,
I wasn't a
She
board
was not a board member.
okay. So we have Mr. Gilbert abstaining from the 7th and Mrs. Stevenson
Abstain.
from the 7th and 21st. So we stay in order. Any other comments? Okay, let's vote in on the first one. All in favor?
So 5.
5, okay. And on the second one, all in favor? A question?
To call a motion?
Yeah. He's,
I move that we approve the second set
he's
of
a
minutes.
parliamentarian there.
Oh, yes, go ahead, sorry.
I don't want Mrs. Ford-Roth here to come after you.
So motion to
Approved.
approve the second set of minutes for June 21st. All in favor?
Mr. Casey.
Mr. Casey, he'll get used to it after
Yeah.
first and second.
Yeah.
Just throw a dart.
Old pro.
I used to write myself a post-it note.
Yeah,
I know,
exactly.
I'm going to do that too.
Wasn't
Okay, let's
no
move over to action items. Potentially for business items, we may want to consolidate them, but let's go first to approval of annual appointments. Motion to bring this to the floor. Mrs. Rajat, Mrs. Blaber. Anybody want to speak or any comments? Okay. Motion to vote on this? All in favor? Okay. Let's go to approval of annual authorizations. Motion to bring to the floor, Mr. Gilbert, Mr. Casey. Anybody that wants to discuss this? Comments? Okay. And motion to vote? All in favor? So, okay. Let's go to C, authorization of bank depositories, petty cash funds. Motion to bring it to the floor. Mr. Gilbert? Anybody? Mr. DeLallo? Any comments? Motion to take it to vote. Mrs. Blaber, Mr. Gilbert? All in favor? Okay. Let's go to authorizations of employee bondings. Motion to bring this to the floor. Mrs. Rajat, Mr. Casey, any comments, questions? Okay, motion to take to vote. All in favor? Let's go to business items and motion to bring them to the floor as a group. Mrs. Rajat, Mr. Casey?
So all 10 items?
All 10 items, unless somebody would like to break one out.
No, you can be South Carolina. You can comment on it.
Did you want any comments, questions? Okay. Motion to take this to a vote. All in favor? Southern.
We just approved the contract for Mr. Freeman, who's in the audience.
Okay, and we do want to acknowledge that we approved the contract for Mr. August Freeman. He's in the audience. Thank you very much. Thanks for your service and time with us.
And let me correct that. It's a combination. It's the Freeman Project Manager Services, because I think she's actually on site more than he's on site. So, I stand corrected.
Okay. So I think we're done with action items.
Yep.
Unless there's anything else open. All right, let's move over to item F, acceptance of special education placements. Mrs. Mylad. Motion to bring this one to the floor. Mr. Casey, Mrs. Stevenson, and we'll open up to questions or comments. Anybody? Go ahead.
Just the number of summer appointments and what you have already started for the fall.
Wow.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mhm. Anything else? Okay, motion to take to a vote. All in favor? Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Mylett. Let's go over to personnel approval of staffing recommendations. Mrs. Bush.
Good evening.
Motion to bring to the floor. Mr. Casey and Mr. Gilbert. Okay, open to questions.
May I recognize that we have 12 teachers up on this board agenda, and one Robin McKenna, our teacher, coming from Myers Middle School in Albany, will be joining our staff. She came this evening. And we have a new class assistant principal. He was unable to attend. He'll be at the next board meeting, Lucas LeBaire. Lots of summer work and one retirement. Deb Coppins retired after 22 years. She was a special ed teacher and chose to retire at kind of late date. Those are
Okay. Any comments, questions? No. Motion to vote? To take this to, all in favor? 7-0. And can we bring our new teacher up? And let's go to second reading of policies and procedures. Mrs. Carmen again.
Do you want to click on 1610 for me?
That's the question people have.
Okay. So tonight we have the second reading that went forth on June 7th board meeting. And a couple of the changes.
So there's not that one, oh, wait.
No.
Yeah.
No.
It's not a rescission.
No.
There's a correction.
Thank you.
So Mrs. Carmen just want to point out one change. Doesn't change the, okay. Doesn't change the, it's hard to see on here.
I have it written here.
We made one modification to this particular policy, and
There you go. Right after, it's the last paragraph there, right after election. It says, and an overview of the Board of Education election and other propositions to appear on the ballot.
Yeah.
So that was the piece that was added there. So I just wanted to point that out.
Initially, on it said, referred to the budget, so we had other propositions, because that's actually part of the annual notice. So we don't have to go back to a first vote, it's just accepted second with the modification.
Okay. Any comments, questions? Do we need to have any discussion within the board? I don't think so.
I'll second.
All saw it? Okay, all in favor?
Would I abstain from this?
No,
Just
you
because
can't.
I can't see
All
him, so.
Huh? You didn't see him? You could abstain if you didn't see him. That's correct. That's fine.
all in favor?
So who first? Who first? Who was the first?
Oh, we didn't get that?
No.
Oh.
Motion.
I make the motion.
Motion, and Mrs. Blaber first, Mrs. Rajat second. All in favor?
And Mrs.
One abstention, Mrs. Stevens. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I think we're done with policy and procedure second reading. Let's move on to public comments. Do we have anybody who wants to make a public comment at this point? We need to read it. And at this point, we're almost ready to adjourn, but I just want to make sure everybody's aware of meeting dates. Also note, I have a planned vacation on August 9th, so I will not be here, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Gilbert to run that meeting.
So as Mr. Gilbert sits here and smiles at Mr. Presley tonight, next time he'll feel what it's like.
Bob, also, if I can note, I will also be on vacation.
Okay?
Separate
one?
place than you.
For
so
which one?
On the August 9th
Okay.
as well.
We'll be meeting at the track for that meeting.
Sure.
Well done, Mr. President.
Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Mr. Casey? Mrs. Rajat? Therefore, I think we're done.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Good job.
Okay, we're done.
Good job, Bob.